All right, this will be my first ever YouTube review of anything ever. I will be reviewing season 3 of The Man in the High Castle. And I'm making this review because, well, nobody gives a shit. Let's just get straight to the review. I'm going to give a series, the season 3 of Man in the High Castle, Amazon Prime, a C minus, C plus at best. Okay, the reasons are clear. We've gone from a show that explored a barely plausible alternate history of what would have happened if the Axis won the war, to a show that, with a sort of a subtext of maybe there's something paranormal going on in the background, and these videos are sort of interesting, to a show that is now entertaining sort of like werewolves of the Third Reich levels of ridiculousness. This show has I don't want to say it's jumped the shark, because the definition of a show that's jumped the shark is a show that has gone one episode too far and is no longer worth watching. I'm not going to say it's no longer worth watching, because I do intend to watch the 4th season due to a better than average season 3 cliffhanger at the end, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But it's coming perilously close to jumping the shark with this whole warping in and out of parallel universes. And well, we knew that was going to be sort of part of it from the beginning, certainly since season 2. But what is absolutely absurd and very hard to swallow is that the Third Reich is now going to weaponize this phenomenon and march armies into other dimensions to conquer them. That on its face, just articulating that, it makes me realize even more how absurd and laughable it is. The Third Reich is going to build a portal to parallel universes so that it can conquer other versions of history. Why? Why would they do that? What? It makes literally no sense. And the disaster and the complications and sort of disastrous outcomes that they are flirting with in order to achieve this nonsensical end, it just doesn't make sense. It's not plausible. So that's number one. But that for me was not the biggest problem with the show, with the season 3. Because if that had been it, I would have been a little bit amused, perhaps. It might have taken it with a tongue-in-cheek attitude. It's so bad it's good kind of thing. That for me was not the worst aspect. The worst aspect of season 3 was that it was boring. It was so boring. 70% of the time I was bored to tears watching it, and I only continued watching it because of the level of investment that I'd already put in terms of time and emotional energy watching the first 2 seasons. So now I feel like, well, can't quit now. But the season 3 was just boring. The plot lines, all of these sort of superfluous plot lines. Nobody cares about Chief Inspector Kaito's dalliance with a prostitute. That goes nowhere and has no significance whatsoever to the greater plot of the show. Nobody cares about, well, let's be honest, nobody cares about Frank Fink at all, no matter anything about him. He is one of the most dull, unlikable protagonists that I've ever seen in a series of any substance. We thought he perished in season 2, and I was relieved when he did, when he got blown up in half. I was thinking, thank goodness. We no longer have to watch him mope around on screen and, sort of wring his hands about how, oh gosh, he's just he's borderline emo. And it's just tedious to watch him sulk through whole episodes. But at any rate, he died in the 2nd season. I was relieved. Finally, we're done with him. We can focus on the characters that we like and somewhat care about. Juliana Crane, Joe Smith, and yes, I do like Joe Blake as well. But then he came back. Frank's character emerged from the shadows, sort of like a half-formed man because of the thing that he experienced in season 2. And when that happened, I about threw my computer across the room because I was thinking, no, anything but this. And true to form, he was boring. The the full extent of his adventurousness, and it was to make paintings and to post them in sort of naughty places, like some sort of rip-off of Banksy, the street artist. I mean, it was just... every time he came on screen, I was like ready to hit the snooze button. Same thing with Kido. I kind of, tolerated him in the second act, but both he and the other Japanese character, the trade minister, they have a problem where they're very one note. Every scene with them has the exact same tone, the exact same emotional level. There's no variety whatsoever. And that's especially true for the trade minister, whose scenes are watchable only because that actor is very watchable. He's a very watchable, I don't know, there's like something about his whole countenance, his face and his voice and stuff that makes him sort of entertaining to watch. But he's not given much. He's not given much to go on. And it's unfortunate. I feel like in a way, even though he's in a lot of the scenes, he's underutilized as an actor. Also did not care about the trade minister's relationship with that lady with the painting. I thought maybe she was going to turn out to be a traveler. She might still, because she was painting the Golden Gate Bridge as it could be and not as it was. She took out all the ships and all that. So I thought maybe she was a traveler, but that never went anywhere. Nor did the thing with Kido and his prostitute. Nor, for that matter, did the relationship between Ed and this cowboy that came out of nowhere. Let's just briefly talk about relationships between relationships whose sexuality and whose romantic interest we have no concern about, and suddenly we're being forced to sit through their relationships, trials, and tribulations. I did not need to have a sexualized version of Ed McCarthy. Just didn't. He was sort of a likable, goofy little character. Didn't need to know what was going on in the bedroom, and that would have been true if he were straight too. But then to have him all of a sudden, this hunky cowboy is hitting on this mousy little kid, and the kid's reciprocating, and it's just, I don't know, it made me feel very uneasy for some reason. I think it would have been the same, probably, if it were a woman. If it were this knockout gorgeous woman, spots Ed across the bar and he makes eye contact with her and she makes eye contact with him, and before you know it, they're making out. Totally unbelievable, totally out of left field. And the fact that suddenly Ed's homosexuality is just treated as a given. Like, oh yeah, he was always like this. Where have you been? What? Are we going to talk about, when was that going to be? It's too late in the game to make that kind of revelation and not to make more of a plot point out of it, frankly. We should have seen him, if they wanted to go in that direction, we should have seen him struggling with his feelings perhaps with Frank a little bit more than we did, or we didn't see it at all, really. We saw that he was very fond of Frank, but it never crossed the threshold of, he obviously has a crush on Frank. And to see him in that light now is just very jarring for me. Okay, back to the plot points that I did like. Here's what I did like about the show. Oh, I liked when Frank Fink's character was beheaded in the sort of home run stretch of the season. I was like, when Kido took him out to the desert with a sword, a katana, and I was thinking, please, Kido, do not commit suicide here. Do not commit suicide. Just dispatch him again, and we'll never have to hear from Frank again. And he did, and I was thrilled. Okay, not because Frank's a bad guy, but because he's an extremely dull character, and he weighs down the whole series. I really liked Joe Smith, I can't say that word, so I'm going to try. Joe Smith's plot line. I thought that actor is sensational, and I could watch him read the phone book and I would find it intriguing. And he's given a lot of good material in this season, dealing with the death of his son, and also realizing the epiphany that he has when he's watching these reels, these movie reels, and sees his son still alive and well in these alternate realities. I thought that was a really powerful moment. His wife, really liked her in the first act, liked her pretty well in the second act, although again, she was a character that was given just a lot of monotonous one-note material just over and over again. She had to play the same emotional beats and had the same emotional level and it just got a little bit repetitive. The whole thing between her and the shrink, again, this was a sexualized relationship that just came completely out of left field and was a little bit unwelcome. It went nowhere. Okay, I don't think we'll ever hear from the shrink again. I can make a promise to you that we will never hear from that shrink again. But one minute he's making the moves on her, and the next minute he's not, and he goes to Joe Smith's character and confides in him, and that's the end of it. She doesn't get to see him anymore. Okay, well, that was a waste of time. And it's not like these therapy sessions were illuminating. They didn't tell us anything about her character that we didn't already know. She's sad that her son's gone, and she questions the eugenics policies of the Third Reich. Well, we already knew that. We didn't need all this filler. I really liked what they did with Joseph Blake's character. I thought that he was very compelling to watch and badass. Became sort of like this cloak and dagger assassin, which was cool to watch. I was sad when he was killed. I thought that the chemistry between him and Juliana Crane was electric. And when they saw each other first time and start making out, I'm like, yes, this is what it was a satisfying moment. Unlike the reunion between her and Frank, which was completely underwhelming. She shows him the video, and all he can do is like, well, I'll just keep on making my paintings. Maybe I'll go put them up in Denver. Like, that's what you came away from that video with? Was you were just going to make more Banksy paintings? Where is the inspiration? Where are we seeing people really getting amped up by this alternate universe video to take action? It was sort of like the people that went along for the ride to the Poconos would have gone anyhow. So, at any rate, I really liked Joe Blake's character arc and was sad to see him get killed, although I thought he was killed off in a very effective and logical way. It made sense to the plot. I hope that he'll come back from one of these parallel universes in the future. And Juliana Crane's character, she's pretty cool. I like her. She's very pretty, as everyone always reminds us. She is very pretty. And that's part of what makes her so likable and sympathetic as a character, I think, just to be honest. Because she doesn't... A lot of these characters are just utterly humorless. They have no sense of humor, and they don't have a lot in the way of charisma either. And so you're not really given a lot to go off if you're trying to find like a bond with a particular character. So you got to go off things like, well, she's got she's nice to look at, and I hope she makes it. I do think that it was a little bit unusual that we went from like super vulnerable, kind of like wafy Juliana Crane to badass assassin murderer Juliana Crane in a matter of episodes. And she seems now to just be like killing without remorse. I don't feel like that was really justified. And also her sister. There is another character, another moment that I thought was wasted. Every time her sister came on screen, I was like, oh gosh. The show's just very gray. And it's always been like that, but this season in particular was a real downer in that regard. So I'll continue to watch the show because I want to see what happens with Joe Smith. I want to see what happens with Joe Blake and Juliana Crane. Hope they wind up together. And I thought it was cool that she finally made the leap to another dimension in the last episode, and curious to see where that goes. I'll make one final observation. Even if you take at face value the central conceit of the show, that there's these parallel universes and that the Third Reich for some reason wants to march armies to them and take them over, okay? There's one. Did anyone else wonder, when these people get disappeared into these third dimensions, why do their clothes go with them? Shouldn't it be more of like their bodies disappear and there's like a Yoda-like sort of shrinking of the clothes where they were? I mean, if the clothes go with them, why not the thing they're standing on? Why not the chair they're sitting on? Why doesn't that go with them? Why doesn't it's. I doubt that will ever be addressed specifically, but it's one of those things where it was kind of like, did they give any thought to that whatsoever? Anyhow, so yeah, C plus at best, and look forward to the closure in the next season. Thanks for listening.